Hi guys, and welcome to the first lounge. Not live, but if you could see us, I'm enjoying a glorious sunny afternoon. Will is in Reims, France. We'll come on to that in a minute. And I'm not quite sure where Paul is, but it looks very comfortable.
Steve Hart Teddington, thanks for inviting us on the hottest day of the year, Steve. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Sorry about that. And I suppose the other double whammy is it's not ideal coffee drinking weather either.
I don't know. I quite enjoy a hot cup of coffee on a hot day. I think get the temperature to the right level, and it's going to be perfect. But you can't go good.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, maybe let's go with you first, Paul.
Okay, so I'm Paul. I'm CEO of Pact Coffee, and I've been with the business since 2017. The business was launched back in 2012 by our founder, Stephen Rappaport. So that's who I am.
I'm Will Corby. I'm head of coffee for Pact Coffee, which might sound like a bit of an audacious job title, but my role is to look after our coffee supply chain right the way from farms and finding potential farms to produce the world's best coffee through export, shipping, import, roastery operation, and getting it out to customers. So kind of everything that we touch to do with coffee, which involves most of the coffee supply chain.
Fantastic. Okay, well let's kick this off. In an incredibly crowded marketplace that you operate in, Pact is a company with a profound sense of mission. Really comes across strongly, stretching far beyond traditional commercial targets. Paul, perhaps you could tell us about what Pact actually does, your mission, and why it's so important. And if I might just add, why does your tag "Coffee Without Compromise" have so much meaning?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Steve. What's Pact Coffee all about? Pact Coffee's, when Stephen set up Pact Coffee in 2012, it was all about the mission was making coffee a force for good, but, what was the proposition going to be? And it was very much making sure the world-class coffee sourced directly from origin, from the farmers that we buy from, would be delivered to the doors of consumers freshly roasted. This was very much a new concept at the time, and really important. But coupled with that, and you mentioned the sense of purpose, it was very much about giving our customers the knowledge that each of our farmers had been properly paid for the beans that we purchased, and that they, most importantly, had received a fair price. So, it's essential from that perspective, and it's become very much our mission so to do. In terms of what does coffee without compromise mean, it relates fundamentally to the three key pillars of our proposition. So we talk about three things with our proposition. Firstly, we talk about quality. Secondly, we talk about ethics. And thirdly, we talk about flexibility. So when we say quality, every single one of our coffees is of specialty grade coffee, a minimum of 82 points out of 100. Okay. In terms of ethics, we've made this promise for many a year now, and we have no plans to deviate from this, that we will always pay farmers a minimum of 25% above fair trade rates. So fair trade is good, it's a start, but it's not enough. And fundamentally, we believe that our starting point should be 25% above, and we will pay right up to double the level of fair trade rates if the coffee is worth it. So we pay according to how well the coffee is worth it. Well, I'm sure you want to add to that.
I was just going to say, we also publish that pricing every year. So since we've started buying coffee internally and we have full control over that, all of that pricing data is published within our corporate social responsibility report, which is available right up to date right now. But it covers all of our buying practice, but also we literally list out those prices.
Brilliant. And the third thing was flexibility. And Pact, I guess, was unique at the time because it was the first entrant into, Stephen was passionate about making sure that you never ran out of the coffee you loved. And so he believed that the right way to do this was subscription. And today we have 54,000 subscribers, which has grown significantly during lockdown. And fundamentally, people are on plans. But the flexibility piece is we don't tie people into, the control sits with the consumer. So you can pause your order, you can skip your order, you can cancel your order. You can change your coffee, you can change your frequency, and all the control is online at your fingertips. So it's, just to reiterate, it's quality, the very best coffee in the world, it's ethics, direct trade is the right way to go about business, and it's flexibility, which is fundamentally the control sits with our customer.
Fantastic. And you referenced there, Paul, that the business was founded by Stephen in 2012, and I know you came in as CEO in 2017, I believe. And I also understand that when you came into the business, you encountered a number of challenges, for example. And I wondered what attracted you to Pact Coffee in the first place. What were those challenges that you were facing? And how did you set out overcoming them?
Okay. So what attracted me to Pact Coffee was literally walked in the door, my interview, and you could feel the energy, you could feel the excitement in this business. And, it was a 3:30 on a Monday afternoon. It wasn't a particularly special time, but you could feel that energy and the entrepreneurial spirit. And very much, I had probably 6 interviews, and at all stages, I could feel that sense of purpose, right from, and I met people at all levels. I met the members of the board a couple of times, and I met members of the team, and I could feel that sense of purpose and how important, that cut right through the organization, everyone believed in making coffee a force for good. So that's really what attracted me. I thought it was a great proposition. I felt we had an excellent opportunity for which to grow. You mentioned the challenges. So it's pretty well documented. Pact launched in 2012, grew rapidly until 2016, and then hit its first difficult times. We were definitely overextending ourselves. And we were probably a little bit over-reliant on paid social channels. So that was putting pressure on the coffers. And fundamentally, at that point, there was a danger that the money would run out. Okay? So my job was to come in and make sure, I guess, 2 things. Turn the financial performance around, make the organization profitable, but also pivot the business, not away from consumer, but on top of, to make it multi-channel, and pivot the business into a B2B offering, which we were able to do successfully in 2017. So I've been lucky enough that since we've been there, the business has been profitable, it's been solvent. We've just celebrated 32 months of profitability. Also, up until about 3 months ago, we had an amazing B2B business that was growing rapidly, and albeit I call it in hibernation. It's in hibernation now during the sort of semi-lockdown position we find ourselves in today.
Fantastic. Another point, and maybe this one's initially for you, Will, but before I ask the question and you get a chance to answer it, I'd love our listeners and viewers to get an understanding of why you're in France right now, and just the story of the last 5 months.
I hope that question is for Will, by the way.
Yeah, that is for Will.
So I'm very lucky that I managed to get married on the last day of legal weddings before Boris shut everything down back in March. But unfortunately, that meant that our honeymoon was pulled from underneath our feet at the last minute. So we've just managed to come across to France just to have a couple of weeks escape from the office. So, as you've probably heard, we're all packed. Everybody's fully engaged all the time. As coronavirus kicked in, we had to be all hands on deck, because as a company, we're supporting a team in the UK. We're supporting customers who more than ever needed us, needed the normality of having us in their lives, and new customers who wanted the normality of having specialty coffee back in their lives. But also we have relationships with 200 farmers around the world who we needed to make sure we were looking after. So that meant moving forward lots of shipments so we could pay them for their coffee earlier, and doing all kinds of things within our supply chain. So it just kind of meant all hands on deck and kind of making sure that everything was ship shape. And now we're kind of into that position. It's time for me just to duck off and have a couple of weeks honeymoon and placate my wife a little bit. Because,
congratulations firstly, and congratulations probably for this quote from Emily Knott from the Mail Online, and she says that your coffee is far superior to her regular cup of instant coffee. But I suppose that does beg the question, why is the UK one of the biggest markets for instant coffee, and what makes yours quite so superior?
It's a strange phenomenon. The UK coffee market never really developed with the European coffee market, so we didn't develop the beans and ground culture that we see across Europe, even though kind of coffee was being consumed in the UK in the 1600s. Actually, what we saw was very low consumption until you see the kind of 70s and 80s, where TV advertising came in. Instant coffee was pushed on us, but also TV advertising meant it was actually much easier to make a cup of coffee during an ad break than it was a cup of tea. And then actually, as you moved into the 80s and 90s, a new type of coffee culture started up in the US, which was then brought over here. So although we're part of Europe, actually a lot of our modern coffee culture is derived from US, especially from things like the Central Perk Cafe and Friends. And actually, when you begin looking at the coffee shop models in the UK, you begin to realize they look a lot more American than they do European. So it's been a really weird thing with this instant coffee consumption. We've got this history of it, and there are vast swathes of the population who still drink instant coffee. But actually, when you begin breaking those people down into various categories, what you find is there's an aging population that consume instant coffee. And actually, when you begin looking at the consumption within younger age groups, there's quite significantly lower consumption of instant coffee, and actually real drive into getting involved in specialty coffee. So we've got this really strange mix of kind of older categories at age groups where people almost exclusively are drinking instant coffee, and then younger ones where they're almost exclusively drinking specialty beans ground. And we're moving through, and we are in the midst of quite a great shift, which is great for a company like us, but also I think great for everyone that wants to drink a cup of coffee, because it's not a hard place to start with beating a cup of instant coffee. It's really not very tasty stuff, but when we're able to put next to a cup of instant coffee literally some of the world's best coffee, because we are able to source that, because we have customers who want to drink it and are willing to pay the not outrageous price for drinking it, it makes that job that much easier. So instant coffee consumption in the UK is a very strange thing, but I think we are going to see the back of it over the next few decades, which is great news for us.
We will crack it.
Absolutely, and one of the things that when I was thinking about chatting to you guys, I'm very interested in your brand. That's kind of my background, and I appreciate that you've recently gone through a bit of a rebrand, and a couple of things really stood out to me in your brand. One was the sort of thumbnail coffee bean device with really strong sense of individuality and personalization. But then it was the word pact that really resonated with me, and I'm assuming, and I may be wrong too, that the pact is really between yourselves, your growers, which are clearly really important to you, and ultimately your consumers. Is that fair to say, and is that something that you're really going to build on in terms of the name and the brand going forward?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Steve. There are three communities, really only, that we're caring about here. We care passionately about our team, and we're a team of 60 at Pact now, and obviously very much our mission is making coffee a force for good, and we're caring passionately around our 200 or so farmers that we're working with, and now we have 54,000 subscribers, customers, and around about 100,000, up to 100,000 who buy on an ad hoc basis from us, and also 2,000 business customers who buy from us. So we see ourselves as, we're kind of like the pivot between the farmer and the consumer. The team at Pact brings it all together. And so the brand is it's the mark, it's the promise, the thumbprint is the promise that we make to one another, that we will make coffee a force for good and do good effectively. We rebranded last year, but very much we have not changed our mission, vision, and values an iota from the original ones that were put in place by Stephen back in 2012. So the branding looks different, but the story remains constant.
Yeah, and I love the colours that you've got running through it, and the personality in some of the language, and the lightness to some of it, and I find it very engaging. I'm sure your consumers will as well.
I think. Sorry, I was just going to say that there's we want to set ourselves aside from the crowd. A lot of coffee companies brand themselves very black, velvety, that kind of look. Ours is more. It's more playful. It's more colourful. It's fun. And if you've seen our recent TV advert that we've just been showing through June and July, we love and we're passionate about specialty coffee, but we are playful as well, and we do poke fun at ourselves and the industry just a little bit, because I think it's important not to take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Here to that. A couple of things that you mentioned, Will, around the kind of almost scientific production methods that you have. How do you manage to kind of tally that with making sure that your farmers earn the right level of income for their quality product? How do you manage the two, and obviously bring into that equation the whole fair trade dynamic?
So coffee production is most of the farmers we work with have been working in coffee production for the past 20, 30, 40 years, and where they haven't, they've grown up mostly on farms and have learned about it all their lives. And a lot of what they know and learn is taught and shared through look and feel and touch and taste, which are fantastic things. The human body is an amazing tool, and you can measure the temperature changes in temperature very rapidly using your hands, and taste different changes in acidity using your tongue very quickly. But actually, to develop consistency and develop quality, very basic, quite cheap tools that we're able to get our hands on and share. And as part of our 3-phase sourcing program, we are able to make small investments in scientific things, scientific objects or tools that allow farmers to most importantly, very easily track what they're doing and then learn from that tracking. So we have projects in Colombia where we put in place flotation tanks that cost us $10 per farm to roll out. A traditional flotation tank on a coffee farm could cost $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. We installed on a number of farms we work with in Colombia and Honduras very cheap temperature and humidity meters within their drying beds and patios. Again, $10 a piece, but that investment allowed them to actually track the temperatures that they were drying their coffee at. And once you begin showing people these tools, giving them the ability to actually track things, and then giving them the idea of how they should be using that information, you can quite drastically change the quality of coffee they're producing. And then simply we link in the quality of coffee they produce to the price we pay for the coffee. We incentivize the farmers to produce the best coffee possible on the planet, and when they produce it, we don't turn around and go, oh no, we've got a bit too much coffee. We reward them for it. We have a huge team here in the UK who are going out every day trying to help us to grow so we can buy more and more of that great coffee from them. So as we grow and as they continue to produce not just higher quality, but slightly increase their volumes of high quality coffee, we can buy more coffee from them. So we've kind of built that scientific element in to gradually grow quality for years now. And we've got, as Paul said earlier on, hundreds of farmers we work with around the world now who are engaging with the tools we've created. And the toolkits vary from one farm to the next, and that requires a lot of work. I visit almost every single farm we work with every single year. Obviously this year is an exception. It's going to make 2021 a pretty busy year, I think. But getting out there and understanding what's happening on an individual farm and treating it as an individual farm, rolling out toolkits that are applicable and are going to actually very efficiently change the quality of production. We're not going to go in and say, roll out these 3 toolkits if only one of them will create most of the difference. Help them to increase their quality and then pay a price based on that. And that model has led to things like the Colombian government asking us to help, it's 4 years ago now, help them produce their new quality coffee competition, create a new scoring model for it. And they've actually made me their head judge of it for the past 5 years. And going on into this year, we will be one of the only quality coffee competitions, I think the only coffee quality competition to run remotely around the world. So we're currently in the run-up and stuff. But it's just thinking with the kind of savvy tech head on. I'm not originally from the tech side of the industry. We've got lots of people within the business who are though. And when you surround yourself with great people like that, you begin to think like that. And the guy said to me in Colombia, I don't think we're going to be able to do it this year. I said, no, we can do this. We can keep everything going. We just have to think differently. And just keep going forward.
Yeah, I love that. And that comes across really strongly. And actually it picks up on something you said just off air, Paul, earlier, that, along the lines of, business with a big heart can do more good and be more powerful than a charity. I mean, that's extremely powerful. How do you justify that, if you like? What do you mean by that? Because it's a very powerful statement.
So firstly, I'd just like to say that I'm not going to take the credit for that, because it's one of our vision statements and goes back to 2012. But having said that, I do absolutely believe it. So let me put some context to it. So it's certainly not dismissing anything to do with the incredible work that charities do, but they absolutely do incredible work. But just to put some context, that we are, I would call us just a medium-sized business. We're around about 10 million revenues. We will spend £2 million on green coffee this year. And when you factor in that we're paying, on average, maybe 50% more on average than fair trade, okay, on average 50% more than fair trade, you can see the likely impact that's going to have in countries like Colombia, Rwanda, Honduras, Guatemala, Ethiopia. So that's what we mean. Now, to just put a little bit more substance behind that, obviously one of the areas that suffers in either a global recession or, dare I say, a pandemic is charitable donations. We know that for a fact. So charities have massively suffered in the last few weeks, whereas few months even. Whereas we know that an affordable luxury like coffee, it's market forces, it's demand led, and we're not relying on donations. And I can honestly say, from the 60 incredible people that I work with, they've all got big hearts, and we believe we can do more good than a charity. So I stand by the statement.
Fantastic. Well, it's very, very powerful. I've got a great question from a colleague of mine, Jeremy, who asks, real growth in COVID obviously is pretty much unheard of. So what are the three things you did that made the biggest difference? And then he asks a really interesting sub-question. And he says, for those of us who love coffee but are too old to cope with caffeine anymore, how's the growth in decaf and no caf coming along?
Okay, so I'll answer the first one, and then Will goes for the second, I think. The three things that we had to make sure when you picture lockdown in March, and the benefit of hindsight, we didn't know lots of things. We didn't know whether we would be shut down as a business. We would, our operation, because we've got a pretty sophisticated operation down in Hazelmere, Surrey. So we honestly did not know whether we'd be locked down. So we flipped our business goals. Our commercial goals were all about growth, so we can sell more, we can do more good with the farmers that we work with. But it all changed in mid-March, and it was we had three things, funny enough, that we had to do. One was just looking after the health and hygiene and well-being of our people. So that involved additional sanitation measures and social distancing measures in the warehouse. Okay, so it was health and well-being. The second thing was simply to keep going. It became a priority more than anything else. Keep going. So be that from the operation itself, or saying to Will, I don't care, Will, let's go and get some more coffee, because demand is going crazy at the moment. I don't care what it costs and supply chain costs, let's go and get it. So it was keeping going was the second one. And then the conservation of cash, because we needed to make sure that we could operate as a business. And as things happen, even though we lost our £2 million run rate on our B2B business, we saw an absolute spike that has maintained. We haven't lost those customers. They've stayed with us loyally through this time. But effectively, our consumer business doubled in over 3 months. So yeah, they were the three things that we did to make sure that we were better set following COVID. And Will, with decaf?
Touch on
decaf, no caf.
Oh, sorry, I just want to touch on the health and well-being. As we moved through and it became obvious that this was going to be more of a long-term thing, the management team came up with some really great ideas for ensuring that everybody within the company remained both really well connected in terms of day-to-day, but also engaged with each other, building social stuff together. I think Paul will be able to list off all the things we've done. They include
yoga, wine tasting, quizzes. I'm sure lots of people have done them. An Everest speaker. We've launched a coaching program. Yeah, lots and lots of stuff.
The new coaching program to help with all parts of people's lives, not just specific work coaching, but everything anybody could possibly need to help themselves, get through this. And it's an amazing company to work for, and to have been able to roll out those things during lockdown to ensure that everyone has that mental well-being still going has been really important to us all.
And that's a really interesting thing you say there, Will. I mean, to the extent that do you think that the business is stronger now than it was 5 months ago for all the wrong reasons, if you like, but for all the right reasons?
It is financially. It's you know, we feel a bit like we're the guilty survivors, but financially it's stronger. And it pays testament to the fact that we're multi-channel, because whilst we watch one set of revenues ebb away, and it will come back, it's going to come back, we've absolutely exploded on the other side of the business. So it's an absolute endorsement to be multi-channel. So yeah, from time to time we do feel like the guilty survivors, but our year-on-year growth as a business is 60% at the moment.
And then in terms of the team,
fantastic.
You know, we've been able to, we've, you know, at very short notice, been able to change, and we've remained dynamic, even across video conferencing and emails rather than being face-to-face. We've rolled out more new products. We're about to roll out a huge announcement next week, which you guys still keep your eyes peeled for. But we've done it all whilst sat at home at our kitchen tables, much like Stephen was when he started the company. And yeah, I think when we do eventually get back into that office together, we are going to be an even stronger team than we ever were.
Yeah, we're a bigger team. We're a much bigger team already. We've been hiring, which has been quite interesting. So.
And I mustn't let Jeremy's point about the decaf and no caf go unanswered. Yeah. So, Will, maybe you could just pick that one up.
Exceptionally important question, this one. So I know from my previous years in the coffee industry as an importer and retailer of green coffee to roasteries, decaf is where coffee's tended to go to die. So as an importer, if you had a green coffee and it wouldn't shift, you just send it off to decaffeination. It goes on your decaffeination list, and then that's what people buy because that's the option. And as soon as I joined Pact, I said, right, we're not buying decaf off anybody. We're not, you know, our decaf customers are as important as every other customer we have. And our goal is to have the same range of taste and flavor profiles available on decaf as we do everything else. Now, we nowadays, or since I've joined even, we have always arranged to have same coffee that we buy for the rest of the website for everybody else to drink, decaffeinated ourselves. So we just send it off to decaffeination plants, bring it back. It is labor intensive, and it does mean committing to a large volume of it, but it means that we can always guarantee that our decaf is of the highest quality and that it's really fresh. So I can understand Jerry's concern because, you know, I've lived on the other side and I've seen what tends to get shipped out as decaf, and it's a really sad part of the specialty coffee industry. But what I can say is jump onto the Pact website and do try out the decaf, and you should find you have a pretty great experience.
Fantastic. And I suppose just you mentioned you got some very exciting news coming up in the next week or so. But if you were to kind of look forward over the next 12 months, very difficult to do, 12 months, even 24 months, what do you think will be the biggest changes to the industry? And perhaps more importantly, what are going to be the biggest changes to Pact itself?
I might do the Pact bit, and then Will, you can do the industry bit. So for Pact, we're at a point now where we know our proposition is rock solid, and that customers really like what we do, and it's really down to our like I said, our ethics and the quality of the coffee. So we're at the point now where we need to invest more in our brand. So we started some of those investments during this period, actually. Like I said, you know, advertising on TV, it's the first time we've done it. And that takes time to build a brand, to really cut through. And we want to be the first real household name as a specialty coffee brand. And I think we've got the opportunity to do that. So that's where the investments are going to be. We are already, we've just ordered a new roaster because we have outgrown our 70 kilo Loring roaster. So we will have 2 of them firing up from December. So we can roast 20 tons a week from September. So we will need to continue to invest in our operation because our rate of growth has really surpassed even our plans at the moment. But yeah, brand, marketing, because the more coffee we sell, the more happy farmers we have working with us. Well, what about the industry?
Well, the industry is in a strange position. Again, looking back at all those market reports, you can quite easily see that the majority of specialty coffee consumed in the UK is traditionally consumed in coffee shops. We've gone through a period where consumption of coffee in coffee shops has been almost zero for the past 3-4 months. And a lot of UK specialty coffee roasters have been hurting because although they had tended to have a minimal presence online in terms of direct-to-consumer retail, generally for most of those roasters that would be less than 10%. So where we only recently launched a B2B offering recently in the knowledge that we had a great product and we wanted to share it into businesses, many of them have had products suitable for coffee shops, have had business models and buying structures set up that mean that they can buy large volumes of espresso to sell into coffee shops and small volumes of more boutique coffees and bought through expensive supply chains to sell online in a D2C way. Now we've seen that completely tipped on its head, and it's not going unnoticed to us that these roasters have tried to move into the marketplace, into the various marketing channels that we use. But part of the reason that Pact was so so attractive to me when I joined years ago now was that there was a level of expertise in every part of the business. This wasn't specifically a coffee company with coffee expertise, like trying to find its way. We've always invested in the right expertise across every facet of what we need. And I think for the rest of the specialty coffee industry to keep going, there's going to be a need to shift an understanding into recruitment of people who can bring specialist skills into the industry. And I think if that happens, there are companies that will do well. And I think if those that don't quite catch on to it, if we see a continued reduction in consumption of coffee outside of the household and an increase inside the household, there are going to be some roasters who drop by the wayside. So it's going to be a really interesting few years. I hope that many businesses can keep going, but I'm really excited about what we can do. I think we're really well set up for it.
Oh, fantastic, and actually that leads nicely onto another point really that you raise about your purpose and mission, and I just wonder how relevant that is and important it is to your recruitment. So for example, would you shy away from recruiting someone that perhaps had worked at a big corporate that contributed to the darker, less sustainable side of the industry? I would imagine your purpose and mission are very, very strong magnets to the right type of person. How have you found that?
Well, just to put your mind at ease, Steve, I'm from the boring and dull world of big corporate. So
so it happened.
So they made the mistake there. But yes, our mission, our purpose makes recruitment actually unbelievably, I'm not going to say simple, but it makes it a lot easier. Our last 2 roles, now I know we're in COVID lockdown, but our last 2 roles, we've just advertised on our own channels and we've had over 400 applications for them. And
wow.
These were new created roles. So yeah, I think we're well known in the coffee industry. There's a lot of coffee lovers out there, but we see ourselves as very inclusive. as an organisation. We are, we would not prejudice against corporate people. We would encourage, because corporate personnel do bring a skill set.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we would look at anything, but yeah, our role is to bring them in, and clearly we're looking to people who continue to add and build on that culture, and then we're looking to develop them. And they don't need to be the finished article. We're a young company. We do not need to be the finished article, but we recruit for attitude, and that's really, really important.
Fantastic. And you know, both of you have spoken very eloquently about the good that you've done for the communities that produce the coffee. And I'm just wondering whether all the good that you've done is focused just on those coffee communities, or does it have a wider impact beyond just the coffee community?
Well, it's probably up to you.
So in terms of at Origin, we have a focus on making sure that the economics of the way that we work at Origin remains commercial. So we try to ensure that we're always that funds are always moving towards the farmers, and and that happens in a way that's related to quality. So almost everything we do is related to that. Occasionally, and on these various visits I do to each of the farms we work with, and some of the things that crop up. So there's a strange thing in coffee. It's called cupping. You taste coffee. You call it cupping because you taste the coffee from a cup. And generally, if I'm tasting a coffee from a coffee cup and I'm about to visit a farm, I can probably work out what aspects of the farm I need to be paying close attention to during that visit, to be able to get a good understanding of or leading them in terms of increasing quality. Now, one of the things I was actually saying to Paul recently is that you can never get to grips when you're cupping a coffee with the ethics and the attitude of what's happening on that farm. You know, I visit all the farms and we're paying close attention. We're ensuring that child labour is not being used, slave labour is not being used. But then there's also things like equity. And there was a group of women we started working with in Wheeler in Colombia a couple of years ago. And they had formed a women's producer group called Asoma Prisma, specifically for the reason that it meant that the husbands of those in those families would allow the women to leave the farms to go and socialize in the town together. And having created that, I then managed to create an opportunity to go and meet them. And we began to create a kind of strategy for developing equity within their farms. And that over the past 2-3 years has rolled out into us joining the Partnership for Gender Equity globally, and investing in that across the world, but also paying for those classes to be taught to the families within the region, to begin moving things on. You know, it's the beginnings of moving things slightly further outside of coffee, but also, you know, I think gender equity is so important in something like coffee, where we see on the farms that have the best gender equity, which also happen to be in Wheeler in Colombia. We see Jose Ramon and Maria Coellos married and working in perfect harmony, doing their respective roles within the home and within the business, and sharing equitably within it. But where we see that, we see farms that are doing much better. So we do move outside of kind of coffee science and looking at coffee, but always try to keep those investments within the communities. Somewhere else, like Rwanda, that might move into something like the Gorinka project, which we invested in late last year, by which we bought 34 cows for families who live in the communities who supply us the coffee. That project sounds like I'm an absolutely crazy man. It's about supplying.
It's one of my favourites, by the way. I love this one.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Supplying a stronger nutritional balance to the families within it, and also a second source of income. There's been plenty of studies done in East Africa that show that the ownership of a cow can quite drastically increase the income, but also the future potential of a family. So we've begun doing projects along those lines as well. So generally, always around the outskirts of what we're doing, and always trying to push the mission forward and remain on track with coffee. But you can see that kind of does touch on various different things, and every single farm is individual, and every single solution has to be individual as well.
Fantastic, great answer. And sadly, we're sort of running out of time. I can't believe how quickly the time's gone. Before you both go, though, I'd just like to ask you, for the HUBCP Lounge audience, if you were to choose one of your coffees, which would it be, and how would you serve it? Paul, can you answer that first?
Okay, this is nice and simple for me because I always say the same thing, so I'm at least consistent. I would always recommend that first purchase would be Plan Alto, which is from Brazil. It's a nice, it's a lovely chocolatey coffee, and I would serve that via a V60, which is we call it on the TV, we call it the funnel thingy. So I would do it that way.
Brilliant.
You get a longer answer from Will.
Okay, Will, over to you.
No, listen to me.
I'm glad as it was, because it gave me some time to really dig deep there and have a think. I feel like you've just asked me who my favourite child is. Hoping that the farmers don't get to see this, because otherwise they're going to be in huge amounts of trouble. See, I love all the coffees we buy. I mean, I'm exceptionally lucky to be able to work with all these farms, and also to be able to drink those coffees every single day. It is my day starts every day by tasting the previous day's roasting, and although I don't get to do that every day during lockdown, we have still kept it up. So if we take it back to the wine model again, every morning I'm waking up and getting to drink one of each of the best wines in the world.
You're still delaying. Get off the fence. Are you still delaying? You need to pick a favourite child.
So all of the coffees are absolutely fantastic, but touching back on that that gender equity point, for me, one of the coffees that really shines through, and it's available most of the year, is from Finca Buenos Aires, which Paul visited with me a couple of years ago. They really show what commitment to specialty coffee can deliver. And also what working as a team can really deliver. And the coffee is absolutely outstanding. We receive 3 different lots of each year. It's received once as a filter coffee, which we sell on our fruity floral line. We receive it once, and it comes in slightly different time of the year. It's slightly more chocolatey and refined, and then another lot that goes into our fruit and nut espresso. So you can get to enjoy it as both a V60 or as espresso.
With the funnely thing.
Yeah,
with a funnel. Yeah. And I've got to say, my regular coffee shop order is always a double espresso and a filter, so I would have to have both. If I'm walking into your coffee shop, be prepared to do lots of work, because I like to test people out on their espresso skills, but also get the enjoyment out of a long drink like a V60 from a funnely thing.
Fantastic. Well, I'm definitely going to try the V60 funnely thing, and it just brings me to say a huge thank you from the HUBCP Lounge for giving us a brilliant insight into Pact, and it sounds like it's going to be a really exciting next 12-24 months, and we can't wait to have an update on the story. And I know you mentioned that you had something like 54,000, subscribers. After this, that's going to go up and up and up. You've sold it beautifully. Great story, well told. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Will. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us on, Steve. It's been great. Thanks for having us on, Steve. It's been great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.